Okay, good evening everyone. Again, quick body count. How many are on the toilet? How many are here? Today quite okay, no? I think by now we have figured out which medicine to take to support the body, and at least for the monks also, by now we have a huge stack of medicine, So it seems we are going to stay in India for a year or something. But yeah, you never know. So I hope no more twin miracles. We have settled that by now, and then we can continue with our Dhamma practice. And today, also again, just a reminder of the immense special acts that we have been committing in the afternoon, especially, of course, also in the morning by going there to meditate, but then especially also in the afternoon when we had the opportunity to offer the robes to the Buddha. And again, for most of us, it's probably a once-a-lifetime event. Both in terms of the opportunity to come here and then also to be able to afford the cost for the whole journey, and then of course also to have the opportunity to offer the robes that have been hand sewn by a large group, a team of people in KL, putting in a lot of effort, not just for a day or two or a week or two, but for months on end. How long was the whole sewing project actually? 2 months? I think more than that, huh? 3 months. Yeah, I also think so. Yeah, the break is not counting, And Kyong very systematic. Did you take a break? No, you don't get credit for that. But even if it's just 2 months, 2 months of wholesomeness, how many minutes, how many hours, how many mind moments of wholesome intentions? That's what counts. It's actually not so much the outcome of what we give, whether the rope is perfect or not. Maybe when you sew, you went a bit offline at some point. I think all of us who have experience with sewing, we know it's actually not so easy. Can you see a show of hands? How many of us know how to use a sewing machine and do some proper sewing? Can you raise your hands? Okay. How many among the men know how to sew? Raise your hands. 1, 2, 3. All the monks, of course. Actually, Asma Paladhammika and also Asma Sutira, they are not only able to use a sewing machine, they're also very good now in hand sewing. So it's a skill that has recently developed in some of the forest tradition monasteries, where they also learn and teach how to hand sew. And people are now starting to sew a whole robe by hand. So, yeah. So for those of you who have some experience with that, you know how much time, how much effort it takes. And it's a good mindfulness practice, It's not just a waste of time, how long does it take? Because you can develop many Dhamma qualities while doing these things. Number one, mindfulness, of course, because you have to be very careful not to make mistakes, and you make a mistake, you have to pick it up afterwards. And secondly, also, everybody makes mistakes. It's like in life. And then also, what is happening? You check your mind, Is the mind getting annoyed, irritated, or even angry, throwing the whole rope in the corner? I'm not going to continue with this. Or can you maintain your composure and say, okay, let me go back a few steps. So there are many small life lessons actually to be learned in these projects. For today, I was also thinking to speak on 2 topics. One part I would like to cover related to meditation, because I see there's a lot of interest in meditation in many of you. And also after lunch, some of you have been approaching, asking questions about how to adjust the practice to the circumstances that we find ourselves. I think this is quite a relevant topic. And then I first would also like to invite Asma Paladhammika to share with us on one of the verses that we find in our chanting books, and to elaborate on that a little bit. From the Samyutta Nikaya, is it? Or Anguttara? Samyutta Nikaya. So let's give Pala a warm welcome and invite him for a Dhamma sharing.
At some point, this is going to get easier, I hope. I just want to, as they do, when I recall as a layperson going to the theaters, and before the movie starts, you have all the trailers and the introductions, and it asks people to take out their cell phones and put them on silent. And at some point during the movie, at least one or two phones would go off. So just to kind of tone down any interruptions that might come about, I would be appreciated. So those verses that we have in the chanting book on page 35 are about gains, honors, and praise, and it talks about how Prince Ajatasattu, the son of King Bimbisara, was sending basically loads of requisites to Devadatta. And in that, the Buddha basically says, it can be expected that one who is receiving such gains, such honors, and such praise, only decline would be expected to be found for Devadatta. Devadatta is, I believe, a cousin of the Buddha, but basically he's one that tried to take over the Sangha at a point in time where the Buddha was getting old, and he could see, okay, maybe this is my time to seize power in the Sangha, and he wanted to establish certain ascetic practices, but the Buddha would not allow that. This is the part where I go blank in the Dhamma talk. It's funny. I'm always at SVS talking among the monks. Always got so much to say. When I get here in front of you, just
It should be the other way around, Talking non-stop is too much. Praise and gain.
Praise and gain, honor and praise. It's something that the Sangha will always have to deal with. When the Buddha first became enlightened, nobody really knew who he was. Nobody really cared about him. Nobody knew about enlightenment or the Dhamma. And it's interesting how the Buddha certainly warns us about gain, honor, and praise. And I find it's almost this burden that the Sangha has to juggle and deal with. Because without gain, honor, and praise, how else would the Dhamma have spread to Malaysia, or to China, or Korea, Japan? At the same time, this same gain, honor, and praise is what can lead to the ruin of the Sangha. This largesse that comes about to the Sangha that at some point begins to corrupt the monks. And it's interesting to watch today at the Mahabodhi temple. We were sitting down to meditate this morning during the guided meditation, and I think I got the summary of it basically. No need. Bear with me, everybody. We're going to get through this together. So when we went to the Mahabodhi tree today, and we were sitting in meditation, I heard some crunching coming by, and just a lady kind of putting some, 20 rupees on our laps. And it would be so easy to just take that money, start my own bank account. I think about it sometimes, just how easy it is to become corrupt as a monk. It's like one of the largest bank accounts, banks in Sri Lanka went bankrupt, and some of the 3 largest accounts were monks. So, and so people have so much faith for the Sangha. And so it's really like quite a responsibility that we have to not abuse that faith. So Bhante, you had another topic?
keep you busy for a while.
Maybe I can talk about something that is maybe a bit more relevant for me. The India pilgrimage. Who has been to India before in the group? Okay, that's a lot. So I guess for everybody, aside, for me, the holy sites weren't so riveting until Kusinara. Kusinara was quite powerful, moving, emotional, just to try to imagine the Buddhist body there. But for me, really seeing the amount of dukkha that's in this country, that's been the most powerful thing for me. And it's a contemplation that the Buddha would often prescribe, dukkha anusati. One who sees dukkha in this world will see anicca. One who sees dukkha in anicca will see anatta. And today we were walking back from the Mahabodhi tree, and I was being followed by kids, and they literally followed me, escorted me all the way to the hotel. But yeah, just to see his face, his skin was all wrinkled. He looked so old. He was a 5-year-old boy, and I don't think he wanted money. He was just saying, kinda, he was I think he was just very hungry. And for me, that is the most powerful thing that I think of the trip. Does anybody?
So, Bhante, is it your first time in India?
First time.
Any culture shock?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been in Southeast Asia now since I've become a monk. I've been to Sri Lanka, Malaysia, of course, Thailand. A culture shock, yeah. I'm just surprised about how much, how insignificant as a monk I am. Like, it doesn't seem like, in Malaysia, people kind of recognize you as a monastic, and in Thailand, you're treated quite royally. And it's not that I need that, but it's like people don't even recognize monastics anymore. It's like the whole samana culture has died out in India, and how can it be otherwise after 2,566 years? Yeah. Questions is good. Does anybody have any other questions? Keep this going.
The situation here reflects the Four Noble Truths.
The what here?
The situation here in Bodhgaya reflects the Four Noble Truths. There is suffering, and there is cessation of suffering, the Buddha. So right in the middle of all this mess of suffering, we have a diamond. And that is in Bodhgaya.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we speak?
We can try. Yeah, that's another thing I'm noticing about India. It's just like it's a country of extremes, just extreme beauty on the one hand, extreme ugliness on the other hand, quite foul. And so before I returned to the hotel today, I decided I would go to the Mahabodhi temple, and I'll decide to practice meditation. And then before I left, I was just walking around the big stupa. I don't know, it was just so powerful. They had this kind of Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. It's a catchy tune, and it really kind of sinks in deep. And I was just imagining the place empty and void of people and void of the temple, and just, the Buddha, kind of the lone wolf, the lone warrior entering into the, plunging into the village and really trying to discover what's really going on here. For me, that was what got me into Buddhism, is I guess the fundamental questions about what is this? What's happening here? Why is it happening? And in Buddhism, you don't really get any answers for that. You just get tools about how to disentangle it and how to cultivate wholesome states of mind. Wholesome states of mind leads the mind to feel calm and peaceful and at ease. And such practices that are not only beneficial for ourselves, but have effects on others. And so to your question, there's another question.
You did the meditation at the Naga. We hope that you can complete.
Well, Bhante Arya is going to speak on meditation.
You speak about the principle. You did the Marananusati, right?
I did the Marananusati. That happened.
Why is Marananusati important, or why is this a useful thing that the Buddha would record from time to time? Speak about the benefit of Marananusati.
Okay. Yeah, that was a one-hit wonder. I came in here thinking, they missed the best Dhamma talk I will give in my life. It's all downhill from there. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So over here it says, as long as Ajatasattu goes and tends upon Devadatta with 500 cups as an offering, only decline can be expected, not growth. Is this? I guess what we usually hear is that we should treat praise and blame the same and all. It doesn't exactly. But over here it seems like it's trying to say that honor, praise, and stuff are not such good things to have.
I don't know if it's ever spoken about the context of lay people, but I guess you could extrapolate it out to include also lay practitioners. But for the monks, it's so detrimental because it really pulls us away from, I guess, the original intention of the holy life, that we've kind of aimed to abandon any wealth, our family, any notoriety, and to kind of live a secluded lifestyle where we can really develop our minds. And with the accumulation of praise and gain, then it pulls us more and more into worldly dhammas, into the world where we have to I don't know, where we begin to seek that as the end to the holy life, where we want more praise, and more gain, and more honor. And there's even a sutta. I went through the whole Samyutta Nikaya in preparation of this talk. None of which I remember right now, but it goes on to say that it's an obstacle even for the Arahant, an obstacle for his pleasant abidings, basically his jhanas, that he might be spending so much time building monasteries or meeting with lay devotees that he begins to neglect his own samadhi, his own concentration of mind. It's not to say that he can never again enter jhanas or he falls away from arahantship, but it's not really the main purpose of the holy life. There's even a sutta, not in this Samyutta, where this monk, he's traveling around, he finds himself in a random village, and he encounters a lay devotee, and he gives him a discourse on the Dhamma, and he was inspired. He's like, "Oh, great, Bhante, tomorrow come for the meal, I'll support you, no problem, for the rest of your life." and the next morning he packs up his things and leaves, because there's an entanglement there that comes with, I guess, with gain. I hope that answers your question. We can keep a queue of questions for Bhante Ariyad.
I observe something interesting also with newly ordained monks. Very typically, when you have somebody for the first time ordaining, and then the first few days after being ordained, being a monk, and being on the receiving end of all the generosity, the kindness, the respect that monks often get, it feels quite intimidating almost. Where the newly ordained one might not feel, wow, I'm not worth all that respect and all those offerings, and it's very paisela. So a bit shameful, or a bit, yeah. So they don't want it really, and they actually find it difficult to accept the praise and the paying respect when for the first time somebody bows. No, please stop, no need to bow. Have you had that before? Have you seen that? Often with newly ordained monks. Normally, more senior monks, they're quite okay with it, They're okay, now it's time for bowing. So they're okay with it. And this also comes from identification, because wrongly the person takes it personally. You see, really, people are not bowing to me or you or anyone specifically. It is what the monks represent. The Sangha, and the possibility for striving towards liberation with the utmost of our abilities, and giving up our normal comforts and living the holy life. Every monk in this sense is a symbol for that. And nothing personal, nothing to do with me or any other monk. So, but when the monks take that personally, then they feel, oh, I'm not worth of that. So actually, they need to change the perspective to some degree and not take the praise or the honor personally. That is actually very important. And then as time goes by, often they get a bit more used to that. And then it can sometimes dip in the other extreme, that a person starts to find a liking in it, or feels a bit entitled to all the support and all the honor. Sometimes they go in arms round in some of the traditional Buddhist countries, like Thailand, for example. And you go with a senior monk, and I was walking behind him. Then we stop, somebody comes out to offer food, and then the devotee ready to offer the food, he steps back, he says, take off your shoes. So he kind of demands the respect. No, you're not supposed to wear shoes while offering to the monk is barefoot. So as a sign of respect, normally, yes, that's what devotees do. But it's not necessary to enforce that, right? But that can happen if you get so used to that special treatment over many months and years. There is a danger, and this is what Asma Pala was also pointing to. There's a danger that the person will start to feel entitled to all of that. And the solution is not to prevent everyone from making offerings, but the solution is to recognize that in our own mind, when there is a sense of conceit or arrogance or a sense of entitlement. And of course that does not only apply to monks, I guess. So there might also be situations in your life where you are treated very kindly, either by your children, grandchildren, people on the workplace, workers, people who work for you. So but not to take that too personally and get carried away by that, but respect or kindness that we receive. So humility, being able to still have a normal conversation with each other, not always from superior to inferior, so just two friends, just two human beings, just 5 aggregates plus 5 aggregates, right? If you want to look at it at the ultimate sense, it's just 5 aggregates here, 5 aggregates there, interacting with each other. Nothing personal, all just laws of nature. So looking at it in this way, the sense of identification and conceit can be abandoned. And even when then honor and praise come, the person is not getting carried away. It's not a law of nature that as soon as somebody praises you, you have to become arrogant. So there's a danger there, but when there's mindfulness, yoniso manasikara, it can be avoided, of course. Yeah. Otherwise the Buddha wouldn't teach. Otherwise the Buddha wouldn't point out the danger in it. Because no point of mentioning it if it makes no difference anyway, right? So the Buddha is not just teaching the Dhamma for the sake of education, that we know how the world works, but it's meant for as a tool that we can change, that we can see the danger and then adjust accordingly. So I think that's also very much the spirit behind those teachings. We have a whole samyutta full of suttas related to gain and fame and the danger in them. So in that perspective, but yeah, it's interesting how a newly ordained monk tends to be almost shy and very reluctant to accept any offerings. And then as they grow older, okay, now it's time for offering, come closer. Become much more entitled and quite straightforward sometimes. And I personally, I never like to see that. And often, actually you see it more with traditional monks in traditional Buddhist countries. And when they for the first time visit a place, not just like Malaysia, but a good way of humbling monks would be to invite them to the West. Because in the West, we don't have that sense of you are something special just because you're wearing robes. It can be quite the opposite sometimes. So actually this is a really good experience if after a few years, maybe in Thailand, Burma or Sri Lanka, the monk comes back to his mother country and realizes, okay, I'm still a human being. Maybe I'm not a god after all. So, yeah. So these are the dangers in Lavasikara. Do you encounter that sometimes in your own life? In what kind of situations would you say there's a danger of excessive praise or blame? In what situations? Do you have to sometimes? In the workplace. Okay. So yeah, there's the danger of doing your work so well that people might praise you. Some people don't have that danger so much, you know. Because if you're not working well, nobody will praise. So, yeah, but in the workplace can happen easily. Any other examples, Bala?
Of too much praise?
Too much praise? How about the blame side?
How to deal with criticism? Well, consider that it might be true, and that there's really something on our end that we need to adjust. This is something I think we do that I appreciate about SPS. Just we have more of a culture of admonishment, which the Buddha quite regularly encouraged. That from newly ordained monks to majjhimas to senior monks, that we should be open to one another, not just things related to the lineage, but just interpersonal conduct. Otherwise, if we're not able to receive any kind of feedback from one another, then how can we ever grow as individuals, as a community? The Buddha in the Dhammapada talks about it as someone pointing out gold to us. And even if the gold is not packaged very well, if it comes crumbled up in a box, in an Amazon box, it doesn't look so nice, still it's quite responsible on our part to kind of open it up and realize, okay, there's gold in here, how can I make good use of this? So that's how that's how to deal with blame skillfully, hopefully. Do I see a problem with too much gain in the world? It seems to me, just from the outside looking in, from here looking there, that, I don't know, none of these billionaires in America, the Bezoses and Gates of the world, they never seem to have enough. When will it be enough? There's always more money to be gained, another property to buy. I mean, really that satisfaction will have to be found within.
Pala reminds me a little bit of Luang Por Sumedho, you know. Luang Por Sumedho in his early years, the first time when Ajahn Chah asked him to give a Dhamma talk, go up on the Dhamma seat, and he gave him the microphone and said, okay, speak to the people, in Thai language, you know. But Luang Por Sumedho's Thai was quite okay already. It was not easy for him, but he could speak some Thai by that time. So he gave his Dhamma talk, he put together everything that he knew and remembered, and then after 30 minutes or something, he was finished and was ready to go down. And then Ajahn Chah said to him, continue. Okay, if Ajahn Chah says so, of course he continues and scratches something else together from somewhere, from the depths of his memories, some stories, some incidents, completely unrelated to the topic, but still, he kept going, you know. Then again, another 15 minutes go by and he's ready to call it a quit, and he's ready to go. Luang Por Sumedho, Ajahn Chah says, continue. Then probably he invited the audience for asking questions. And that went on for another half an hour or something. Ajahn Chah again said, continue. And that, I don't know how long in the end the Dhamma talk was, but it sounds like something 3 hours, 4 hours before he let him go. So Luang Por Sumedho said, that was the worst Dhamma talk of my life. I felt so miserable. But you know what does happen? After that, every Dhamma talk afterwards could only become better than that. So that he had no more fear of public speaking almost, because he went through that, he survived it, it's okay, right? Things go by, and you're fine afterwards. And then, I think that was probably the way Ajahn Chah was sometimes teaching. He wouldn't always make it easy for his disciples. And then he would just let him continue again and again. And then eventually, he learned his lessons, and the next Dhamma talk was much better. He had no more fear, because he knew it can't be any worse than last time. Even if he tried, it wouldn't be worse. So, but anyway, don't worry. For Paladhammika, this is not the worst. Actually, it was quite okay. But I have to say, he looks sometimes a bit shy, but he's also very confident, I have to say. You see, because today in the afternoon, I already let him know today we have a Dhamma sharing together. I gave him the topic. He had time to prepare himself. Yeah, great. And then in the evening we talk a little bit. He said, that one sutta is okay, but I don't have so much material. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I will just speak freely. Just freely what comes to mind, as they do in some of the traditions. And we had this topic before, you know, this thing was about free speaking, just winging it. It's not so easy. Unprepared, just sitting down up here and say, okay, give me the microphone, I'm going to speak for a while. Yeah, with experience, people can do that, like Brother Enkyong. He doesn't need to prepare himself. You wake him up in the middle of the night, give him a microphone, he can entertain you. No problem at all. It's more the opposite, you know, you have to make an effort to make him stop again. Okay, it's really time to go to sleep now. It's getting 4 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, the middle way sometimes is good. You know, the Buddha was saying, middle way, Majjhima Patipada. Too much of any extreme is sometimes we avoid, right? So it's just a small reminder, but actually Ajahn Pala has a lot of Dhamma knowledge. And sometimes even myself, when I can't find a sutta somewhere, I remember vaguely, there's this sutta, but a simile that I don't know where it is. Normally my first approach is, Pala, where is it? And I don't know how he does it, but he pulls it out of his head within 3 minutes. He knows usually, or he finds it somewhere. So it's actually really a good help, meanwhile, when it comes to sutta research, sutta studies, and good assistance actually also to myself on that. Sometimes for preparing a Dhamma talk, I just send him the topic and he gives me all the information. But then, you know, for presentation, I do it myself. But maybe there will come a time where we change roles, you know. So I will prepare his Dhamma talks, and I will stay back over in the hotel and meditate over there. So anyway, so in this way we all have our strengths, and I quite appreciate actually Bhante support in this area. The Today I also would like, as I said earlier, we'd like to talk a little bit about not just meditation in general, but about a topic, a question that came up among a few of you. Sometimes after the meal, I sit over there at the lobby, and some of you have been coming, and some have noticed that it's actually not so easy now during the pilgrimage, especially here in Bodhgaya, which is quite a noisy place, to meditate and get into real deep samadhi. Especially those who are used to kind of focused meditation, and then you sit down and you want to watch your breath, or even metta, or whatever it is. Not easy because there's so many sounds and smells and things happening around that the mind will easily wander here and there. So how to do that? How to meditate in such a busy environment? And before giving you the direct answer, I would like to actually highlight more the principle, how to approach this. Because that's actually more important than the specific answers sometimes. Because when we understand the underlying principle, how to deal with the mind, you can answer and solve your own questions over time on your own. And that's much more valuable than just a monk or somebody always giving you the answers spoon-fed. And there's a very nice sutta actually that relates to that, which I've been looking up in the Samyutta Nikaya also. It's called the Sudha Sutta, and it deals with, it's the simile of the cook. So some of you have been joining my workshop or retreat recently, you might be familiar with that. It's in Samyutta Nikaya 47.8, the cook. I will read out a passage and then we'll discuss it together, okay? The Buddha addresses the monks supposedly and says, suppose that there is a foolish, inexperienced, unskillful cook who has presented a king or a king's minister with various kinds of curry. So there's a cook, he cooks for a king. Well, it's quite a responsibility. So he presents the king with a variety of dishes, mainly sour, or mainly bitter, mainly peppery, or spicy, mainly sweet, alkaline or non-alkaline, salty or non-salty. But then, he does not take note of his master. The master is the king, of course. He does not take note of the master, thinking, today my master likes this curry. Or he reaches out for that curry. Or he takes a lot of this curry. Or he praises that one. So he does not pay attention what is the king actually taking. So he prepares all these wonderful dishes, but he doesn't really observe what the king really wants and what he takes. Or he takes a lot of the salty or of the non-salty curry and so on. As a result, he is not rewarded with clothing or wages or gifts from the king. Why is that? Because the foolish, inexperienced, unskillful cook does not pick up on the theme of his own master, on the inclinations, on the needs of his master, of the king. So he makes great efforts, prepares all the various dishes. Sometimes he gets it right, sometimes he gets it wrong. Sometimes he thinks, maybe the king wants something sweet, another time something else. But he doesn't observe, he doesn't know. So he just guesses. So in this way he will not be promoted and he won't get a lot of recognition for his efforts and will not get a lot of gifts or wages. And the Buddha draws a comparison and says, in the same way, there are cases where a foolish, inexperienced, unskillful monk remains focused on the body, in the body, ardent, resolute, mindful, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. So this is a stock phrase that comes actually from the Satipatthana Sutta. So it practices the body in the body, feelings in feelings. So it sounds quite good, right? No, nothing wrong so far. Ardent, resolute, mindful, putting aside greed and distress for the world. That is all praiseworthy. But then his mind does not become concentrated, does not become composed. His defilements are not abandoned. He does not take note of that fact. So you see, so he makes all that effort. He meditates, the four Satipatthanas, but he doesn't notice, he just continues with the same practice, day in, day out, but doesn't notice that the mind does not become composed. So he just continues with his practice. He doesn't observe what does the mind need at that time. So then at the end the Buddha says, his defilements are not abandoned. He does not take note of that. As a result, he is not rewarded with a pleasant abiding here and now, referring maybe even to the jhanas, nor with mindfulness and alertness. Why is that? Because that foolish, inexperienced, unskillful monk does not take note of his own mind. So he just meditates, he's diligent, but does not observe what does the mind need at that time. Now suppose that there is a wise, experienced, skillful cook who has presented a king or his king's minister with various kinds of curry, bitter, sour, sweet, spicy, and so on. But then he also takes note of his master, thinking, oh, today my master likes this curry, or reaches out for that curry, or he takes a lot of this curry, or he praises that curry. So the same for the other types of dishes. As a result, he is rewarded with clothing, wages and gifts. Why is that? Because that wise, experienced cook picks up on the theme of his own master. Yeah? So he observes, what does the king really need? What does he take? And what does he leave aside? And the Buddha, of course, brings the simile back again to the meditator, to the monk. In the same way, there are cases where a wise, experienced, skillful monk remains focused on the body as a body, feelings in feelings, mind in mind, dhammas in dhammas. Ardent, alert, mindful, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. This is the same as before. But then, as he remains thus focused on the mental qualities, his mind becomes concentrated. His defilements are abandoned. He takes note of that fact. As a result, he is rewarded with a pleasant abiding in the here and now, together with mindfulness and alertness. Why is that? Because the wise, experienced monk picks up on the theme of his own mind. So the mind is the king in the simile. So what does the Buddha try to say, to tell us here? He encourages us not just to meditate diligently, ardently, but also to notice, somehow today, this meditation that I'm doing is not leading anywhere. The mind is not getting focused. Or you do very loving kindness meditation. Today it does not work. Why? What's going on? So in this way you pick up on the signs of the mind. Not just kind of stubbornly doing more of the same and expecting different results. But observing the mind. In the morning my mind needs to be energized. Maybe the body is still a bit tired. Maybe at that time anapanasati is not the best method. Or maybe after the lunch, after a heavy meal, you use anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, which is a method that is very good for calming you, for tranquilizing the body and mind. But if after heavy lunch the body is already heavy and tired, and then you put it to more tranquility and introduce more peacefulness and tranquility, then you will just fall asleep, quite likely. So this could be a time for arousing, energizing the mind. For example, with loving kindness meditation, or maybe as type of reflection. So we use much more mental activity, and in this way overcome the sluggishness, the drowsiness of the mind. And then there's another time where the mind is maybe a bit restless. At that time, anapanasati would be a very good method probably. So knowing what is the right time for which meditation method is actually quite helpful. But in order to know that, we have to look back at the mind. How does the mind react? What does the mind take? What does it refuse to take? So that is the general principle that the sutta is trying to outline here. Now coming back to the question, okay, now we are on pilgrimage, sometimes we're traveling, sometimes we're sitting at a crowded place, very busy, noisy. If at that time, for example, a meditator tries to do anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, yes, it can be done. I'm not saying it cannot be done. But it's not so easy, because the breath is meant to be your object of attention. Sounds are disturbances. Every sound, every chanting time, then it's silent for a minute, And then another group comes by, iti piso bhagava. And then they pass by, and then finally the Koreans start with their drums and whatever they have. So there would be constant disturbances and interruptions. So it's not the problem with the place. It's not the problem with the surroundings. It's the problem of how we relate to that. And us expecting our mind to be very calm and peaceful and able to focus on the breath in the midst of all that turmoil. So maybe at that situation, a different meditation method would be more skillful. What would you suggest could be a good meditation method for that? Exactly. Open awareness, open mindfulness. For those who are familiar with this method, it's a method where you can incorporate sights, sounds, odors, flavors even, tangibles, into your meditation practice, because these are all things to be aware of, isn't it? So any moment you hear a sound, you're aware of hearing. Hearing is happening in the present moment, isn't it? We can hear with the ears only sounds that are happening right now. So we can hear the aircon. But we cannot hear a sound that has happened a minute ago, when Paladhammika was speaking. Actually, there was not much sound either. But we can hear sounds only happening at that time, right, when it happens. Or the same for seeing. We can see things only that are straight in front of our eyes, right now. Not sight from 5 minutes ago. Of course, the mind can have memories and recollections, but in the present moment, the 5 senses, the first 5, are only in the present moment. So at a place like that is very busy, and you don't want to be carried away by all the different odors, flavors, smells, and people around, you can just stay within the confinements of these 5 senses. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, body sensations. And that is a very suitable meditation at that time. And you can incorporate all the sounds. Quite interesting. So they're almost like reminders. Hearing is happening. So that kind of practice can be done in this environment. And then maybe later, when you get back to your room, have some time, alone. This could be a time for doing loving-kindness meditation, anapanasati, where the environment is much more conducive for that. So this is what the simile of the cook actually suggests. To be receptive to what does the mind need? What is the right time for which practice? So I would like to encourage you in the next few days, because we are still traveling, and I know that many of you have experience with different meditation methods. Of course, if you know only one, well, that's all you have, then no choice. But if you have more than one, and some of you have been to meditation retreats, courses for years, so I know you have experience with mindfulness of breathing, probably with loving-kindness meditation, with contemplations, like contemplation on death that we all love so much from Paladhammika. So all those reflections we can use, these different methods, but we have to choose the right one at the right time. So like the cook that serves the king with the right dish at the right time, right? Rather than stubbornly, okay, now is sweet for you, now again sweet for you, now again sweet for you. So sometimes the mind doesn't want sweet. Sometimes the king doesn't want sweet. The same way the mind does not always respond well to anapanasati. The same for open awareness, the same for metta. So that's the reason why the Buddha actually used a variety of methods, of teachings. If there's one best teaching, he wouldn't have to waste his time, right, to teach for 45 years. Finished after the first discourse, done is what had to be done, and everybody gets liberated. No, he kept refining and adding new tools to, not endlessly of course, but it was not like a one-trick pony. That's the one method, you use it or lose it. So he would encourage, if this doesn't work, try something else. So that approach I think is very workable, especially in an environment like the one where we find ourselves right now. Any questions or comments? Yeah.
What happened to the 20 rupees?
Yeah, what happened to the 20 rupees? I think he still has them. Yeah, we would like to know what happened to the 20 rupees.
I gave, because I woke up at the time, so I said no, or yeah, and then I grabbed the monk next to me, had it on his lap, so I gave it back to the lady, and then the rest of the monks, I just said leave it on the ground, we're not taking it with us. So.
One day I pick it up and pass it to Paladhammika, and then he said donate to the temple. Then I donated.
There it is. That's what happened.
It's okay, because once the monk... It's okay, because once the monk has refused the offering of money, we are not allowed to accept money. If then a devotee takes it and gives it to a steward or makes a donation to the monastery or for the benefit of the Sangha, that's okay. Then it's properly deposited for the benefit of the Sangha, and if the monks or the Sangha is informed, Bhante, these 20 rupees have been deposited for your benefit. If you need something, please let me know. Then the monk can make a request. Maybe he needs some batteries or slippers or something. Then that is allowable. But if we don't inform the monks also, the monks cannot request, The monks cannot just approach a layperson and say, can you buy me slippers, an umbrella, and a new iPhone, and...
Before I pick it up, I actually asked one of the monks, can I pick it out on your behalf and then pass it to your kapya? And then I passed it to Paladhammika and said, just donate.
Yeah. So he left it up to you, right? He told you yes to do it or not to do it, or what is it? You do as you wish, right? So normally also we don't interfere, we don't tell what to do with it. So it's your decision in the end, So yeah, but that's okay. So all the monk's duty is at that moment to not accept the money, but then if people take care of it, then the Sangha can still derive some benefit from it. So, and also interesting, what many people don't know is even if you deposit money in a donation box or you give it to a monastery attendant, that money, technically speaking, still belongs to you actually. It does not belong to the temple, it doesn't belong to the Sangha. The money still belongs to the original donor, and only when the monks request something from these funds and say, we need an MP3 player, and somebody takes the money, gets it from the shop, an item, an allowable item, and then gives it to the monks. Only then the property becomes of the Sangha or of that individual monk. But the money, as long as it has not been used for anything, nothing has been purchased from it, still belongs to the original donor. So it's just deposited. It's kind of you deposit your own money with another layperson, and for the later case, if the monks need anything. And then the monks can inform the assistant. But actually the money, theoretically, if you want, you make a donation, 500 ringgit, and then later you run out of money yourself. You can go back to the monastery and say, give me back my money. and the monks would have to give it back, it's not our money. So it's actually technically still your funds. That's why also I don't like so much this term donation. When you say you donate it to the Sangha, which really you just deposit it for the benefit of the Sangha. You just keep your money with the kapya or with the steward, but you cannot really donate it to the Sangha. So technically speaking, it's not a donation, you just place it there for later use. So, but I hope not everybody goes back to SPS now. From the last 7 years, please give me back my money. I want to buy a car. Any other questions at the back? Yeah. Last row. Yeah.
Here a question about praise and blame. He's asking about the Indians, praise and gain, fame, and what is that? Anyway, I wanted to talk about this because we talk about Dhamma as learning from the suttas, but also in practice as well. When I had a unique experience of when I first connected with Bhante Pala, I was 6 months ago asked to fetch him from a temple that was very near to where I stayed, early in the morning, and the instructions for Sister Engineer was make sure he has his breakfast dana. And it's like, very early, I can't remember how much was time for it. And obviously, we were in one part of town trying to go all the way to Cheras for the what is that where we observe the cadavers.
A super meditation where we observe the autopsy of the corpses.
That's right. So I knew I couldn't make it in time for the breakfast.
Speaking of time, what's your question?
My question is, I just want to be really, it's a long way. Is how we can also share the suttas to practice, because I had to stop in Chinatown to make sure that Bhante had his breakfast. And when you go to Chinatown, usually you see, in normal times, you see a lot of monks from Thailand or from other countries begging. They're not real monks anyway, they're just a monk. So here I am bringing somebody who looks exactly like those monks who beg. And I was really embarrassed myself. And I did tell Bhante Pala also, I said, people think you're going to be a begging monk, sorry. Maybe you're not a genuine guy. And here was this fellow giving him food to eat. And I was telling this to Bhante Pala because I was a little bit worried about my being very silly, to defeat a monk so early in the morning as well. So
Can you round up your comment?
it's really sometimes in the practice, Bhante Pala actually did not feel at all the praise or the blame or whatever. But I even told him about people are looking at us as a beggar monk, because in the restaurant or in the coffee shop, everybody was kind of like looking at me and him directly to these people. So really, I think in a sense, the practice is also another way of sharing the Dhamma. So I felt calmer. So it's a long story.
Okay, then let me phrase it into a question also. Because, it is a good point that you make that when being out in these public places, and you, as a monk especially, you're standing there waiting for food, everybody's looking, you stand out, both because of the robes and skin color, and we are not from locals, obviously, so we're in the center of attention sometimes. And that can also feel a bit uncomfortable. But you seem to mention that Asma Bala was seemingly quite at ease with the situation and was okay with it. So now my question actually also, how did you arrive at that state of going through the village like that and not minding it all, being in the middle of the crowd? Is this something that you always felt comfortable with, or did it come over time?
I don't know, I didn't really put much thought into it. What comes to mind is when I was walking with my mother, we went for a stroll at the beach. We live near a beach town, and my eyes were just downcast, and she said, people are looking at you like you're wearing a dress, people are staring at you, and I just tuned it out, I'm just kind of in a different world a lot of the time, and that's my answer to that question, comment, story.
Actually, it's quite a deep answer, because often all the anxiety and worries comes because we proliferate, everybody's looking at me, what do they think? But if you just stay with your meditation object, you don't notice all the craziness around you, whether people looking or not, and the mind can be quite at ease, because, as he says, he's just in his own world, meaning to say, attending with his meditation object, doing his reflections, but not caring too much about what other people may do or say or think, because there's no end to that anyway, right? So that can be a very valuable lesson, because often we overthink things. You do something that is actually good or even wholesome, yet, some people might criticize, some people might blame, some people might praise and blame, Sometimes you praise, sometimes you're blamed. Nobody can escape that. Even the Sammasambuddha himself was not free from blame either. So it was so bad that at times, somebody even tried to kill him. One time he was accused of impregnating a woman. So of course there are all kinds of accusations come up, especially for a well-known public figure like the Buddha, and there can be jealousy and all kinds of incentives for people to undermine his leadership and his authority, his role, his teaching. So so it's a good sign if when a monk is not too impressed by that, just walking peacefully somewhere down the street. People look, they don't look, they ask for pictures, they don't care, you don't mind. Do your thing, somebody wants a picture, stop, okay, move on, also okay. So it's good. It's a sign of a good practice, I would say. All right. Any last question? Yeah, there can be difficult situations where, you don't always have a support network around you, or you don't always travel with 100 devotees, so at least I don't. So, yet you can often predict before you go somewhere, where am I going? What will be the situation there? I don't just go into a plane and then hope everything will magically go well. Normally when monks go somewhere, they go anyway on an invitation. We're not just traveling because, I've never been to Hawaii, I get a ticket to Hawaii. So that's not how we travel. So when we travel, it's usually on the invitation of someone. Somebody has requested for the monk to come. This could be the parents, could be a family member, could be a friend, could be some devotees in a place, they invite the monk for a teaching. So whoever invites the monk will usually take care that the monk is picked up at the location, or usually from the airport. The transport is arranged, especially for monks who don't handle money. We know, the devotees know that he is lost on his own. He's like a small child. We are like small puppies running around, waving the tails. We don't do that, but we are very helpless, not hopeless, but helpless in that sense. So in that way, people understand that, and usually you're invited somewhere, they will take care. And if nobody says anything, I wouldn't go to a place where I just go somewhere and show up there without anything. I mean, sure, you can be very austere and then you go on arms round and survive in this way. You don't need a lot of support either. If it's just for survival, we have our bowls, we have our ropes, so I walk down the street. Actually, whenever I'm here on my right side, he made this practice now during our pilgrimage, that every of the holy sites, especially the major holy sites that we visit, he will go on alms round. Not alms round here in the hotel, but actual alms round out to the villages and collect food, whatever he gets on alms round. Just to see, can one still survive in this way? And, I don't know, but so far so good. So maybe on this occasion we can also ask, how is your experience? Was it difficult to find anything to eat or easy? Can you share a little bit?
Well, I would say, Bhante, that there's only one time that I actually ate only from alms round, so I still made use of all the merit and good donations, or good offerings from everyone here. And it was very much also a practice just to see how a samana would be treated in India, and also to see the kind of backstage living conditions of the people. And it varied. One day you get a bowl full of bananas and biscuits, and another day a nice rice and curry meal, so you can actually survive off that. The other one, you're going to have an upset stomach probably, but
you at the hotel, you can have the same, you know.
True. Yeah, I think part of the practice is not like necessarily looking for what to live off of and how to really make your way as a monk, but just seeing what you can be content with, and just the freedom from desire that comes from just walking with your bowl is very kind of uplifting almost. And to see the little children especially giving, then there's a lot of joy. So yeah, it just feels like a wholesome interaction. And yeah, I would continue doing it.
He turned me off the microphone. So yeah, very interesting practice. You can, even in India, it's almost like we are bringing back the Dhamma or these ancient practices to the mother country, because honestly speaking, many of those practices have mainly or almost completely died out here, and you rarely see monks going on alms round. We have only very few monasteries. Sure, here in these holy sites there's an accumulation of them, but you just drive away 20 kilometers, there's nothing. Buddhism does not exist there almost at all. So it is catching up a little bit again. There's a revival, and it's a good thing, and many monasteries, both from Burma, Thailand, Sri Lanka, establishing branch monasteries in India. But then again, Buddhism was never meant to be a state religion, to reach global dominance, or that everybody should become a Buddhist. So this whole idea of evangelism is not very prominent in Buddhism. So the Buddha set out on tour to teach those who are interested in overcoming their dukkha, their suffering, and reaching liberation. But he was always teaching to individuals. He was never trying really to make that a state policy or to enshrine certain laws that people don't break the precepts. It was always on a voluntary practice for people who see the value in it and dedicate themselves to do that, both laity as well as monastics. So sometimes in Malaysia I also see that so many of our Buddhists were so concerned about the number of Theravada monks versus Mahayana monks versus Muslims versus Christians. I find it very irrelevant, because the number of devotees, of monks, does not tell you much about the quality of the Dhamma that you find. And the number can be quite small, yet if the practice is conducted well, and there are practitioners who are earnest in their practice, are progressing, attaining stages of not just samadhi, but also stages of awakening, what more are we asking for? So, and in that sense, I would say that Dhamma is very much flourishing in Malaysia. It's flourishing in the West. It's flourishing in Thailand, Burma, Sri Lanka. Of course, there are, after so many years, you can imagine 2,500 years later, I'm sure the Dhamma has undergone some evolution, yet it is still pristine and powerful enough to lead all the way to liberation, to arahantship. So even though there might be some smaller corruptions of the text, but in the end, those are so minor that they are not true obstacles to liberation, as I see it. And I think this is very reassuring, that after 2,500 years, yes, it can still be done. Yes, we have all we need. So we just have to do it. Yeah. So that's what we're here for, on our pilgrimage. Yes, to practice the Dhamma, to rekindle our enthusiasm, our faith, our energy. But that's not enough. We don't want to just walk back and drive home, and we're all fired up, full of enthusiasm, and then go back to our old ways of doing things. So we have to put it also into practice, follow up, maybe continue with the meditation practice, read some suttas from time to time. So otherwise, it's like putting a lot of fuel into the car and then going back again and never driving. So yeah, you get fueled up here on the pilgrimage with faith, with energy, enthusiasm, inspiration. But then also we have to use that inspiration for something. Otherwise it will just evaporate again. And if you have the fuel tank, you just leave it open for long enough, and all the gas will come out, and eventually animals will creep in, and who knows what is going to happen. Okay? So tomorrow is another day of adding more fuel into our tank. And of course also we use it already even here for practice. So I think next meditation session tomorrow morning again when we meet over there. So with that, I wish you a good evening, and thank you also for the support of the two Venerals today to help us in our Dhamma sharing, and see you all again tomorrow morning. On this occasion, I would also like to invite again all of us that we also mentally make all the good karma available and invite our own relatives, friends, to rejoice in all the good karma that we have accumulated. Especially if there's a recent passing away of a family member, one of our devotees here, don't forget also to particularly invite your recently deceased family member, that she can also happily rejoice in that. Let us recite together. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang no nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Idang vo nyatinang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. Ettavata amhehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. And once again, we also make an aspiration so that all the good karma that we've accumulated will also support us on the path to liberation towards Nirvana. Please repeat after me. Idang me punyang asavakaya pahang hotu. Idang me punyang nippanasa pachayo hotu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.